There's a few versions. One is that he didn't know which herb it was, and the other one is that he couldn't gather enough. So he decided, okay, I'm just going to take the whole mountain, should be fine. So he just takes the whole mountain and jumps back with the entire mountain back to Lanka to save Lakshman. So very innocent. And another very beautiful story is of Hanuman. Hanuman is asking Mother Sita why she's applying kumkum. Like ladies apply kumkum in the parting of the hair, and also as a dot in their forehead as a sign of being married. So Hanuman asked Mother Sita, why are you applying kumkum every day? And she said, because I love Ram, and I want to show my love to Ram by applying this kumkum. And it's like, So, and then a few moments later, Hanuman returns from head to toe red, and he goes to Ram, I love you, Ram. So that's why the deities of Hanuman in India still are, traditionally they put kumkum, now they're putting orange lac color. But traditionally kumkum, you put layers and layers. And some deities of Hanuman are so old, you can't see the deity anymore. You just see this like ball of kumkum, and two eyes, But yes, this is Hanuman. And Bhima is very, short-fused, you say in English. So it's like means that he can easily get angry. Bhima is, he's only very unwillingly following his elder brother Yudhishthira actually. But because he's the elder brother, he still, he will fulfill his duty and follow his brother, but he's always pushing, say, we already came to the forest, now we should go back and smash the heads of the Kauravas, enough is enough, So he always is ready to fight, and he is very powerful fighter, extremely strong, but it is described that he has a very exclusive devotion to Krishna. Very exclusive devotion to Krishna, because he refused to chant any other mantras than the mantras for Krishna, and that meant that he would not use any mantra weapons. Like Arjuna was chanting, Pashupata mantra, Astra of Shiva, and Agni Astra, and also like Arjuna had all the weapons basically, So to invoke such a weapon, you touch an achman, holy water, and then you invoke this mantra, and then this weapon will come, and you are at command of this weapon. Basically, the weapon will do what you ask of the weapon, either invoking it on an arrow or directly. And Bhima said no. Because basically all his brothers had some weapons. Arjuna had the most, but all of his brothers had knowledge, of mystic weapons. But Bhima refused. He's like, no, I'm not going to chant any other mantras. I'm chanting only Krishna mantra. So that's the mood of Bhima. And that's why at the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira instructed his brothers, especially Arjuna, always keep an eye on Bhima, because even if he knows the mantra, he will not use it, We have to protect Bhima. He's very strong, but he doesn't have any antidote to any mystical weapons. So, in a very similar mood, Madhvacharya was a sannyasi who had an army of sannyasis actually himself, and one of their main activities was wrestling, swimming, climbing mountains, and challenging, wrestlers. And one of common challenge Madhvacharya put on wrestlers was, I will wrestle with you if you manage to lift my big toe. So they couldn't lift his big toe. Like that. So, and this mood of Madhvacharya is also very strongly present in Prabhupada's purports. Because Madhvacharya had this main focus was defeating the Mayavadis. So, and what else was it? Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took from all the four sampradayas two main aspects of each one of the acharyas. So from Madhvacharya he took, from Madhvacharya the defeating the Mayavadis, and it's also this the Madhva sannyasis, they carry a danda with a small white flag, But this small white flag doesn't mean we are surrendering. It represents an axe to cut Mayavadi philosophy. So that's, and you can see, Prabhupada, very aggressively in many purports, he smashes Mayavadi philosophy. He insults Mayavadis, It's one of his favorite topics, you could say. Scientists and Mayavadis, they are always been attacked, So much so that his disciples in the beginning asked him, Srila Prabhupada, you're talking all the time about these Mayavadis, but we don't know any Mayavadis, Where are the Mayavadis? And Prabhupada, of course, said, you are the Mayavadis. So that means that all of us have this, innate, impersonal inclination to usurp the position of God, to disregard the position of a supreme entity, and to be selfishly engaged in enlightenment. So you are interested in enlightenment and overcoming suffering, but purely for your own gain. No philanthropic mood attached to it. And and the second aspect that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took from Madhvacharya is deity worship. Deity worship. So the main deity of Madhvacharya was Udupi Krishna in Karnataka in South India, and this is a very special deity that was worshipped by Rukmini in ancient times. And long story, but it came to Madhvacharya at one point, and Madhvacharya actually was ready to build a huge, gigantic temple. Like it would have been bigger than the current biggest temple in the world, Shrirangan. It's Ranganatha Swami temple in Trichy, Tiruvannamalai. There is a big temple. It has 7 walls, 7 walls. And I forgot exactly how many people live within the walls, but I think 10,000 people or something, 20,000 people. So big temple, with 7 walls, and each consecutive wall you enter like to the closer areas of the temple. So also means 7 times 4 is how much? 32 gopurams, So gopurams are these tower gates, Trumpets form tower gates. Many gopurams. 28, okay, 28. I didn't calculate, I just trusted you. So, and it's still the biggest functioning temple in the world, Shriranganam, Ranganath Swami. And Madhvacharya was ready to build a huge temple, even bigger. And history says that he had the funds also to build such a gigantic, temple. But he then decided, no, we will not establish a huge temple. We will not spend the money in a temple. We will spend the money on establishing the highest standard of worship. So the temple is still amazing, but it's a relatively smaller temple, and there are, I forgot how many mats, but it's like a sequence of mats. I don't know how many, maybe 5, 6, maybe more. Monasteries of Madhva sannyasis, and I forgot if each year or every 3 years, but every few years, every certain intervals, a different mat is taking care of the temple. So that way the no single mat is overburdened. So he created this whole system basically. The whole city of Udupi is this different matas, and it rotates, and they have, I think, 10 offerings a day. So we have, how many? We have Mangalartik, then we have breakfast, Shila Puja, then we have lunch, and then we have 5. So double as many as here. And also they do all kinds of amazing darshans where Krishna is manifesting all the different avatars or different forms. and very beautiful ornaments, also ruby, very famous ruby kavacha made of pure rubies and gold. So like that, Madhvacharya established a very high standard and form of deity worship, with of course Srila Prabhupada also established deity worship, all over the world. And the Brahmanas is described, even they are aloof of society. Technically it says a Brahmana is able to jump into the role any of the 4 varnas if necessary. If it's necessary, the Brahmana can do any of the activities for the service of the Lord or for the welfare of society. A Brahmana would not be known, I'm a Brahmana, I cannot do something simple, simple work. And traditionally anyways, Brahmanas had cows, had a farm, might have been running temples. So all the activities that Brahmanas actually did were very independent, self-reliant. So a Brahmana, one of the characteristics of a Brahmana, or you could say qualifications of a Brahmana, is that a Brahmana should be independent. If a Brahmana is not independent, then he's not considered to be, you could even say, a high-class Brahmana. Like there are even categorizations between different types of Brahmana occupation. And some Brahmanas, for example, who might have been living in a city and living in the court, and giving advice to the king, or like in the example of Dronacharya or Kripacharya, they were Brahmanas, but they were like, they became the military gurus of the Kauravas, of the Kurus, and Pandavas also. So they were dependent on a salary and maintenance from the kings. So such Brahmanas are not considered to be in the same category as a Brahmana who is fully independent. So Srila Prabhupada very often emphasizes that a Brahmana should actually be completely independent. He's not receiving any, he has no allegiance, He's not owing any allegiance to anybody. So, and if you live as a brahmachari, a simple life, and as a preacher, you can have the sensation also that if you're a Brahmana, if you're focused on your sadhana, you have all freedoms. You have no compulsions actually, to please something external at least. You might have authorities and a spiritual master, of course, but that's not you could say external compulsion. To do something, to be something. And the idea is, of course, that such Brahmanas would always, therefore, a neutral Brahmana would always decide truly for the benefit of the people, or speak and act for what is truly beneficial for the people. Because the moment you have allegiances, you have mixed, how you say, you're mixed in your, responsibility is not the right word, but nowadays politicians, especially nowadays, they are very much controlled by different interest groups. Any politician who comes to power, he comes to power through huge amounts of donations. And usually the donors are very wealthy businessmen, representing some section of business, maybe the oil or the weapon industry or whatever it might be. And when they spend a lot of money, and it's a lot of money, it's like billions, they don't do it because you are a nice person and they like your policies, They do it because they want you to return the favor, So it's an investment, So in that moment, you're not anymore really working for the interests of the people. You're working for the interests of those who bought you, basically. And we have the same situation also in the Mahabharata, where then even Bhishma, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, they were fighting for the Kurus, against the Pandavas, because they were bound, by allegiance. They had been, maintained and served and giving, so much amenities for so long that basically they were not free anymore, to decide for themselves. Even in their hearts, they loved, like all of them, loved the Pandavas more, actually. But they were in the situation where actually they had to fight for the Kurus. So yes, the Brahmanas, when they see that it's necessary, they might jump into the role of a Kshatriya. And in this case, they did, and they didn't use any weapons, just by, wie hieß es? Hum Kritair, by the sound of hum. So when we were in Gurukul, we did once a drama. We did a Vena drama. We should do it here also. It's a funny drama. It's a fun drama to make. We did the whole drama of Vena, and and the Brahmanas, we all took our Brahmin threads, and then stretched them out, and we were supposed to rip them, like hum, 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 hum. Because when a Brahmana breaks his thread, that's like dangerous. That's how a Brahmana curse. When a Brahmana wants to curse you, he will take the thread, but instead of chanting Gayatri, he will chant the mantra and rip the Brahmin thread, and then you're cursed. So, but I almost broke my finger instead of breaking the thread, So, yes, but just by that's, and in many different areas, like in the Ramayana also, there are many famous stories how powerful the Brahmanas actually are. They might seem, very peaceful, very simple, living in a hut, meditating, but actually they're extremely powerful. So if you anger a Brahmana, the curse of a Brahmana or the sounds emanating from the mouth of a Brahmana can create immediate destruction. Or another example is Vashishta or Vishwamitra. I forgot, I always mix them up. But he was able to manifest an entire army, from his Surabhi cow. So he had just this cow, was not only giving ghee or milk, but it could also manifest anything he wanted, So when this Kshatriya tried to, attack him, he just manifested, all these weapons and armies. So that's Brahmana Tejas, it's called. Brahmana Tejas is extremely powerful. And in general, Tejas is, or Shakti also sometimes we say, but Tejas is you could say, precise word that indicates when somebody has, accumulated a lot of mystic power, through sadhana, meditation, and you can feel, you could say, the aura of such a person who has Tejas, it is perceivable that such a person has, by his, whatever sound he makes, it will come true, So we might curse somebody, but people are like, okay, so what, But if a Brahmana curses you, a real Brahmana who has Brahmana Tejas, his words will actually come true, like that. So they killed Vena on the spot, just by sound, They were so angry, boom, he fell down from the throne, bam, dead. And then the next verse is talking about how his mother, Vena's mother, Sunita, she preserved the body, with special ingredients and mantras. So in a few different areas of the Bhagavatam also, but in the Mahabharata especially, in the Ramayana, I'm not sure if there's also a story like that, but there's in the Puranas and in the Vedas a few times stories of, you could say, something like a chemical laboratory being set up, And the most famous stories, of course, is the story of the 100 brothers, the 100 Kauravas, because Gandhari after, I think, how many years? 2 years, 3 years? She was pregnant for a very long time, you know? And she would not deliver, and it was a horrible sensation and pain, and she just wanted to deliver, you know? And I forgot exactly if she actually hit herself, but a lump of flesh was delivered, you know? A pulsating, living lump of flesh. There's this Mahabharata movie, it's funny how they depict it. And so this lump of flesh, and then first there's the sensation, okay, this is very inauspicious, you know, we should get rid of it, you know. But you know, the king wants to have a child, you know, and so they divide this piece of flesh, you know, you could say like a gene lump, you know. They divide it into 100 pieces, you know, and put it in jars, you know, with ghee and different substances, and they incubate, basically, you know, this individual lumps of flesh into 100 babies, you know, which are then born out of this, you know, tubes, basically, or pots, you know. And the description is very elaborate, you know. There has to be, they used a cave, you know, where the temperature was constant, you know. So if you ever like paid attention in chemistry, any physical or chemistry experiment is very much dependent on the external circumstances. You know, the humidity and temperature plays a crucial role for something to be repeated in the same way. The same atmospheric circumstances should be there for experiment to be, you know, repeated in the same way, you know. So this is also described, and they had this cave, and in this cave the sage, I forgot the name, which sage it was, you know, he was performing this, you know, not experiment, but yeah, incubation, you know, of embryos in the tube, you know. And of course this is also a big topic nowadays, you know, how moral it is, but they try to also create different living entities, and they do to some extent already. They create different living entities in a tube, you know. They bring the right ingredients together, and then they let it grow in a tube, you know. So in a similar way, the body of Vena is being conserved, and we will hear later why and why that is important, you know. And then the sages had, you could say, you know, performed their duty to, you know, unseat such a tyrannical king, and thereby, you could say, for the moment, you know, rescue the people of such a tyrannical ruler. And they retired to the river Sarasvati, to their hermitages, and were doing the rituals every day and pleasing the Lord, you know, talking about the Lord, Harikatha. And I always like to talk about the river Sarasvati because it's a very unique, very interesting topic, because it's not there anymore. If you go to India, you can look for the river Sarasvati, and there are some small areas in the Himalayas where they say, you know, this small river is Sarasvati, you know. But the river Sarasvati we hear about in the Bhagavatam or also in different Vedic texts. It's a huge river, you know, bigger than the Ganga river, you know. So at that time, Ganga and Sarasvati were the two main rivers, and Sarasvati was more predominant than the Ganga, actually. Sarasvati was flowing westwards, you know. So the Ganga flows to the east, to the Bay of Bengal, and Sarasvati was flowing westwards. And this was one of the main arguments of many scholars of Indology against the Vedic texts, you know. They basically were saying, look at this, you know, amongst all the things they have invented, they also imagined that they had one more big river, you know. You know, these Indians had a very fertile imagination, you know. Very fertile imagination. They're imagining so many things, you know. Gods with many arms, you know, and also, you know, non-existent rivers, you know. And because, you know, even Vyasadeva, you know, was also sitting on the banks of the Sarasvati river. And in all the descriptions, there's so many settlements, you know, that's a description in the Puranas. So many different big cities, and especially ashramas, so many ashramas And like a whole civilization basically was living off and with the river Sarasvati. And I think it was in the beginning of the 90s, they started finding in this area, basically it's, beginning in Himachal Pradesh, Kashmir, Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and also parts of what's now Sindh in Pakistan. In this entire area, they found that there were like a whole row of ancient settlements. Like the most famous is Mohenjo-Daro, and also Harappa, and Dholavira. Many ancient sites were discovered, and more it became clear, somehow here in this desert area, somehow like a big civilization used to exist. And then they started taking imagery from the satellites, and they realized there's an ancient riverbed, a huge ancient riverbed. So yes, the Vedas were right. The Sarasvati did exist. It was an ancient river, very, very big, and these sages, Vyasadeva, so many sages had their ashramas, on the banks of this river. And due to the, beginnings of Kali Yuga, it is described that there were many. One of the signs in the first canto we hear when Krishna left the planet, there's all kinds of inauspicious signs been manifested. The deities are crying, donkeys are screaming. There's strong, like loud winds, coming, earthquakes. There's like this whole list of different, inauspicious signs at the entry of Kali Yuga when Krishna left, or when Kali Yuga became more powerful. So yes, it is archaeologically now proven that there was cataclysms, a few cataclysms, a few thousand years ago, that blocked the main tributaries, rivers of the Sarasvati. So the river, little by little, dried up, and smaller versions moved further west. So the Indus River is there further west, in what's nowadays Pakistan. But it's a real river, and it's also very interesting because nowadays, if you ask Indians, they should list the rivers in India. Even like quite uneducated people, they will list the Sarasvati as well. Maybe especially like simple people who live in the village. Say, what are the main rivers of India? They're like Ganga, Yamuna, Sarasvati, Narmada, Krishna. So they will always list Sarasvati as well, because in the, you could say, civilizational memory, it's there. The river Sarasvati did exist. And most of these people don't know that it doesn't exist anymore nowadays. They just think, yeah, it's one of the rivers. Of course. Ganga, Cha, Yamuna, Godavari, Sarasvati, Narmada, Sindhu, Jalismi, Sanidim, Kuru. We chant when we invoke holy water to do Achaman. So yes, the river Sarasvati. Okay, I think I'll stop here. Maybe there are some questions, corrections, anything. Yes. Geht es der Livestream eigentlich? Ja. Hat funktioniert, okay. Dann warten wir kurz auf dem Mikro, dass die auch mithören können. Geht es schnell oder ansonsten könnte ich es auch wiederholen, die Frage? Ja, kommt schon Mikro. Muss oben das bewegen. Ja?
Oh?
Okay, jetzt.
Yeah. I have two questions. The first would be, do you know in which age the Sarasvati dried up? Like, was it?
Yeah, they say like around 4,000 years ago it started drying up. Yeah.
Okay. And the second is, do you know of any example within ISKCON of an independent Brahmana?
Yeah. So many.
Okay. Just what does an independent? So could you because I don't really understand then what.
I when like if you ask me, I would think immediately about Harinamananda and what's Harinamananda and what's the name of Vishnujan? They're independent brahmanas. And when they were young brahmacharis, they used to joke, no GBC, no, I'm GBC, you're BBT, you know, with French tech, BBC, GBC, BBT, okay, let's go preaching. You know, one person is GBC, the other one is BBT, and you're ready to preach, you know. That's all we need, you know. Somebody says what we have to do, the other one distributes books, and then that's GBC and BBT. So, independent preaching team is ready.
And there's no problem with that.
Huh?
There's no problem with INISCON with that.
Huh? No. The thing is that, like I said, especially a brahmana is independent of external compulsions, you know. And we do have an institution, you know, which has rules and regulations. But if you are, like I know many brahmanas, senior devotees, if you are, you know, a serious sadhaka, you know, nobody will question what you're doing and how you're doing, you know, why you're doing it. You know, if you start behaving in a strange way, then maybe, you know, people will be like, okay, wait a second, you know, we might have to call, you know, the troubleshooters, you know, to see if this person is still bona fide or not. You know? But usually, if you are doing your sadhana and you are, you know, a preacher, you have all freedoms, you know. I mean, basically, Srila Prabhupada empowered, you know, all his disciples to take, you know, certain areas, you know, to become temple president. You become a temple president, you have like suddenly like a whole, you know, like a big company to run, you know. And you're, you know, you might have to, you know, I have to talk to Krishna Rupa Prabhu, but he's like a friend, you know, supporting friend. He's not telling me, you know what I should do exactly, you know. So, yeah, a brahmana. And Srila Prabhupada also established the movement in such a way that each temple should be independent, you know, each sannyasi, you know. So all the preaching events, we all cooperate, but we don't have like, you know, one single entity that is controlling everything we do exactly. Yes.
Didn't you say that all devotees living in devotee communities are also brahmanas? I mean, those who are full-time engaged in temple seva.
So I'll repeat the question again. That maybe repeat it shortly. Yeah.
Is it correct to say that to consider all the devotees, the Vaishnavas living in devotee communities and committed to full-time seva, either pujari, temple president, cook, those who are doing it full-time and dependent on the temple are considered independent brahmanas, meaning only dependent on the mercy of nourishing a Deva or Krishna?
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada wanted Varnashrama. So in Varnashrama, of course, there are brahmanas, there are kshatriyas, there are vaishyas, there are shudras. So you might be in a position where you have a Brahmin thread, you know, but you might not be a, you know, Brahman in that sense, you know. Because Srila Prabhupada emphasized the point that we're all Vaishnavas, and if you're a Vaishnava, like included in the package of being a Vaishnava, you're also a Brahmana, you know. That was the attitude of Srila Prabhupada, you know. Like if you are a serious, pure Vaishnava, you're following sadhana, you're chanting, you know, you're following sadachar. Even you might be by qualification, you know, I don't know, a carpenter or something. You can also, if you want, you can have a Brahminical initiation. You can do also seva on the altar. You know, you can chant Vedic mantras. You can chant Gayatri. You know, even by, you could say, nature, you might not be a Brahmana necessarily. So, generally, it's the idea of Varnashrama is that everybody can function its best if they function within their nature. So if you are a Shudra, for example, you're very happy if you have somebody who is giving you, how you say? No direction, occupation, you know. So if somebody tells you, this project you have to do, this project you have to do, you know, this is the materials, you know. But within that realm, you know, of creativity, of course, everybody needs some freedom. So this is also very clear in the Varnashrama system. Each section of society actually enjoys respect and freedom. You know? Srila Prabhupada says that the Shudras were addressed as Thakur. You know, so Thakur means like master, like kind of like, you know. Like in India, people call the deity Thakurji, you know. Thakurji, you know. So the Shudras were addressed as Thakur, you know. So they will feel honored, you know, respected, you know, for their contribution. But a Shudra does not want to be independent. If a Shudra is fully independent, generally will lead to anxiety, financial difficulties, you know, because his main ability is not in business, you know, or management, you know. So his ability is in creativity. So if he has a sponsor, you know, who says, you know, here are all the materials, make the nicest thing you can, then that's, you know, bliss for an artist, you know, bliss for a Shudra, you know, protection, security, and, you know, freedom of, you know, creativity. And in a similar way with businessmen, the Vaishyas, they are free to trade, you know. In the Varnashrama system, the idea is not that the state is controlling all the trade. Like in a communist government, the government is trying to control all the trades, you know. Everything that's produced, everything that is, you know, they make a 5-year plan and they write, okay, this year we will produce 5 million nails. Probably it's enough, you know. And after 2 years, all the nails are gone, you know. So next time they produce, you know, 10 million nails, but the black market already filled the gap, and then nobody wants to buy the nails, you know. And then the nails are just rotting. So a Vaishya is very astute and knows and feels where the need is, you know. So that freedom should be given to a Vaishya to, you know, to see where the gap is. In Germany we say Geschäftslücke, you know. You have to find, you know, a gap where something is, you know, somebody needs nails, okay, you know. A Vaishya will find out somebody who can make nails and he will sell them for triple the price and he will make a profit, you know. So, yeah, so Vaishyas also, they have freedom of trade, you know. But at the same time, Vaishyas are taxed, you know. The right of the Kshatriyas is to tax the Vaishyas. You know? They should tax the Vaishyas so they don't over-accumulate wealth. You know? Because naturally all the wealth will be accumulated, you know, with the Vaishyas. So the Kshatriyas can accumulate, can redistribute the wealth in society. So back to your question, I would say that every section of society or every devotee who's engaged in a movement should have within his, you know, field freedom, and some might be, you could say, Brahminical, that they are actually, because Brahminical also means fearless, you know, means he's not dependent on the security provided by money, job, accommodation, you know. A Brahman is really, you know, ready to take whatever, you know, comes along, basically, you know. That's the nature, that in that way he's truly independent, you know, and the head of society. He's not, whereas the other sections have some dependency, you know, on, and they need it as well. So as devotees, we might be within any of those 4, you know, sections, and still, I think one of the, sometimes when I've been given feedback about leadership, or also when different leadership courses, like we can read a little bit about Prithu Maharaj here also. There is, because a good leader is not necessarily somebody who is doing everything, but who manages people who are. So these are the leadership qualities of Prithu Maharaj. So he's like the moon. He's pleasing and celebrated. He is tolerant like the earth, endowed with opulence like the Himalayas, bodily and sensual strength like the wind, fulfilling desires like the heavens. He's in control like Brahma. He's reflected like Manu. He has knowledge like Brihaspati. He is unconquerable like fire. And he is in self-control like the Lord, fearless like a lion, beautiful like Cupid. I think I read everything. And so a good leader is somebody who, you know, who is not a tyrant in that sense. It is not just somebody who has just power, but also tolerance, beauty, knowledge. What was it? the quality of Manu, reflective, to reflect, what is best for somebody. And Srila Prabhupada also showed that. He said that we should be independently thoughtful. He encouraged that all of us, we should be independent and thoughtful. He didn't want, you could say parrots. My Gurudev always tells the story how he heard about from Prabhupada. We should not be like parrots, just repeating without understanding. And he was supposed to give a lecture at university, and he was talking about we should not be parrots the whole time. And then he was very young, very young devotee. He didn't want to make anything wrong, so he just decided to repeat exactly the lecture. But everybody was like, wait a second, you're just repeating what your guru said, just like not fully. So like after that lecture, he realized maybe I should, try to understand myself and then, present. Okay. Yes. Balaram, yeah.
I wonder to which extent should we, let's say, imbibe or imitate those Brahminical tendencies. On one hand, like I know I don't have much Brahminical qualities. Throughout the years of practicing Krishna consciousness, we try to develop something, at least the basic ones, truthfulness, cleanliness, and so on. And then I wonder what would be pleasing the Lord more. Is it to, like Prabhupada said, he wanted everybody to develop Brahminical qualities, or is it more to be honest that I know this is not my nature, and then I don't know if you get my question. I cannot formulate it. But what is more pleasing to the Lord? Because we also know from the Bhagavatam that those who are with their nature, I think it's the second chapter of first canto, those who are with their nature, with their varna, are pleasing the Supreme, serving the Supreme. Or is it, no, just aim for the Brahminical qualities and wait for, like you said, invitation and so on?
Yeah, sometimes Prabhupada used to say, like, he wants, like, anybody can become a Brahmana, So it seems that, if you are serious enough, you can become a Brahmana, kind of feeling or idea. But if you study, like, my understanding at least is that Srila Prabhupada says, if you are a good Vaishnava, you are automatically a Brahman as well. And especially is emphasizing this because caste-conscious Brahmanas might discriminate against, were discriminating sometimes against his disciples. They were not born in the right families, etc. They have no, samskara, from their previous, generations. So Prabhupada said no, So it was a little bit of a response to that. Prabhupada said, they're all Brahmanas, Or like Prabhupada also was asked, how many pure devotees are there in the world, And Srila Prabhupada answered famously, how many members do we have? So his mood was like that, So that's like the one point. And the other point is that we are not Brahmanas, we're not Kshatriyas, we're not Shudras, we're not, Naham Varna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu puts this very strongly. We Gopi Vartu Parakamala Yordasa Nudasaha. Our main identification should be with that, And also Srila Prabhupada, if we can become Brahmanas, it's not because we are, cultivating Brahminical qualities. It's because we are cultivating Vaishnava behavior and engaging as Vaishnavas. By the qualification of a Vaishnava, we acquire Brahminical qualification. So that's Prabhupada very often emphasizes that to be a, he even says, to be a Vaishnava of very simple character is better to be a very qualified Brahmana who is not a Vaishnava. You might be the most Brahminical person on earth, but if you're not a Vaishnava, then a very simple Vaishnava is considered to be actually higher, according to Prabhupada's, or we understand that a devotee, because a Brahminical qualification can also make you proud. So it's more, if we focus on Vaishnava qualities and behavior, we inherit and we qualify ourselves as Brahmanas as a side effect, you know. Or sometimes it says you acquire all the qualities of the demigods, you know, by becoming a Vaishnava. So yeah, our focus is on becoming a good Vaishnava, I think. Yes, and serving the devotees, serving Krishna. Aber lass mal kurz, wie heißt Aslan? Ha? Stas, irgendwie denke ich mal Aslan.
Ich sage auf Deutsch.
Ja.
Wenn Leiter, also Präsident, King, macht irgendwas Schlechtes,
Ja.
dann Bürger dürfen eine Revolution machen oder müssen eine Revolution machen. Anderes gesagt, teilen Bürger schlechte Karma von ihres King oder was weiß ich, oder nicht.
Genau, es ist genau andersrum. Es heißt, dass der König ein Sechstel von den Karma von seinen Untergebenen trägt. Genauso wie der Guru. Der Guru trägt auch das Karma von den Schülern. Und genauso ein König, jeder, der in einer Position von Verantwortung ist, genauso wie du, wenn du Kinder hast, ne, bis die Kinder 18 sind, I'll talk English again. His question was if the king or leaders, you know, if they behave wrongly, are we allowed to make a revolution or should we make a revolution? You know? And do the citizens carry the karmic reactions of the king? And yeah, actually it's the way around. If you're in a position of power, you carry responsibility for the actions of your people. So just like when you have a child, if the child destroys something, you have to pay for it, you know? And if the father is misbehaving or something, then the child might get a wrong education, but it doesn't carry any responsibility for that, you know? Like that. So, and like I mentioned before, like for me it's also a little bit, you could say, counterintuitive that we should respect the king even if he's not behaving properly, you know? That was the verse. I couldn't find it straight away now, but if you look a little bit, there was some verses ago. So which emphasizes the point that we should cooperate with somebody who is in position, because if somebody is taking responsibility, it's not easy, you know. And the kshatras are giving actually the freedom, for example, to even eat meat, you know, to indulge in intoxication, and they have money, wealth, power, you know. They use weapons, you know. Many kings were polygamous, you know, had many wives also. So all of this is not Brahminical, you know? And a Brahmana is beyond that. You know? So we are trying to have Brahminical leadership, and there might be also, you know, Kshatriya leadership there, or a Raja Rishi, a combination of two. But like in this example here, like if a revolution is necessary, the ideal situation is if the people revolt, but if the brahmanas intervene, you know. So, and this is actually how in ISKCON actually it's usually handled, you know. If the authorities realize, okay, this person, temple president or guru maybe even, you know, is not behaving in the right way, then there will be an intervention, you know, and it's corrected, you know. Yes, so. Because otherwise it becomes destructive, you know. Like if the general people make a revolution, then yeah, nice, you know. And then what afterwards, you know? Then the real chaos starts, you know. And a good example is Iraq, actually, you know. Iraq, many examples like that are there, or also Libya. They had like a dictator, you know, very powerful, Saddam Hussein or Gaddafi, and these powerful dictators, they were unjust. They were tyrannical in some ways, you know, but they were strong, you know, and that created stability in the country, you know. So when they were removed, those countries are just falling apart, you know. It's worse now than before. You know, I've met a few people from those countries, and they say, with Saddam Hussein was nice, you know. Of course, they didn't like this minority, but otherwise, for everybody else, was nice, like more or less okay, you know. Now it's chaos, you know. So like that, the position of a king should therefore not be undermined, unless absolutely necessary, because it's better to have a bad king than no king at all, in that sense, you could say.
Dankeschön. Aber wenn wir sprechen also von nicht von also solche Sachen wie also zum Beispiel wenn dieser King macht zum Beispiel Genozid in einem anderen Land, dann haben die Bürger, also Bürger bezahlen dann Tax, also Steuer und sozusagen jeder sponsiert ein bisschen diese schrecklichen Sachen, die macht also die Regierung. Dann ist das trotzdem, also müssen sie sozusagen warten oder ist es schon Ihre Pflicht, irgendwas dagegen zu tun? Also teilen Sie dann Ihre, also von Regierung diese schlechte Karma oder nicht?
Ja, es gibt individuelles Karma und es gibt auch kollektiv. Also there's individual karma and also collective karma. Like Germans still carry the burden of, being the Nazis in every movie, So because, of the past, So like that, there is a collective karma. There is like, it's not that, and you can do like you can commit individual, good and bad karmas. You can also, as a collective, commit, bad karmas. So if you are conscious that your leader is, I don't know, the Turkish, they massacred the Armenians, and if you think, yeah, they're anyway Christians, who cares, then you're also carrying karma, of course, Yes. Okay. Sanjay? Wohl eigentlich mal schon nach 9. Kurz.
Anyway. I was thinking of two things in relation to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that give some more controversy. One is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told one astrologer that in my last life I was a cowherd boy, and therefore in this life I was taking care of the cows, so in this life I'm a brahmana. It just came to mind. And the other thing that is maybe more relevant is that even though Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stressed that point, we are an eternal servant of Krishna, we are not a brahmana, vaishya, anything. Still, it is recorded that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he would take meals at people's homes as a sannyasi, he would go to Vaishnava brahmanas. I don't know if there are exceptions, but generally he would go to Vaishnava brahmanas. So even though he neglected that sense of identity, he acted within that culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like in a traditional, at that time, if you as a brahmana ate anywhere else than the house of a brahmana, you lost your status of a brahmana straight away. So Kadamba Kanamar always was talking about it. How was this example? I forgot the exact details, but it's more or less like there's this like famous saying, like it's a Bengali proverb, I think, that you are very hungry, as a brahmana, and then you give in and you eat somewhere, and then the food was not good and you lost your status as a brahmana, so like lose, something like that. So yes, so that was the social norm, So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, while he was a transcendental personality, he was Krishna himself, he still, navigated the social norms of the time. So, for example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't took Tridandi sannyas, he took Ekadanda sannyas, So it means his guru was a Mayavadi sannyas, so he didn't cut him a sikha, he was like fully shaved, like a Mayavadi sannyas with an Ekadanda, So, and there are even like the depictions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's not wearing tilak after, not Vaishnava tilak after, because he was a Mayavadi sannyas. He had to appear like a Mayavadi sannyas, So it means nothing, just shaved with a danda. That's it, Before he might have worn, as Nimai Pandit, but as a sannyasi, he was like a full, Ekadanda sannyasi. Yes. So, doesn't matter, because he says, we're not a Kshatriya, not a Vaishya, not a Brahmana, not a Vanaprastha, Brahmachari, sannyas, but he's still adhere to this to be able to be effective and be taken seriously. Yes. So yeah, we should be conscious of social norms, what are prevalent, and as well, navigate it as well. Okay. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktarinda ki jai.